What's up, y'all? It's your host, Sid, and welcome back to another episode of Cooler Talk. I'm so excited that you're joining me and so many dope women this season as we transparently inspire and empower through conversations about womanhood, relationships, career, and all of life's experiences. Joining me at the Cooler today is a special guest, Chatela. She's my college bestie, and she's the founder of Living Redefined, which started out as a journey of her focusing on single moms and single motherhood and building a community around them. And it has since transformed into a community helping mamas of all lifestyles just absolutely live better. T is a health coach. She's a new tech baddie. She's the author of her own book, which y'all need to go ahead and grab it on Amazon. We'll be dropping the title later. And she's a mother of 2 boys, which is the most important part of all of this. So T, I'm so happy to have you at the Cooler with me today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me. So again, like Sydney said, I'm Chatela. I'm from Gainesville. You know, some people call it country. I don't really think it's that country. Really. Like, I feel like I'm a little bit of a city girl.
I cannot.
That's jokes.
I cannot.
That's jokes. Let's see. I went to Georgia. So I went in. I was so convinced, like, I'm going to be a doctor. That was my plan since probably midway through high school. No, matter of fact, since I was 5. I had wanted to be a pediatrician. But back then I called it baby doctor. I want to be a baby doctor. So I went in pre-med, and then after 2 years, I was like, actually, I don't want to do this. And then I was very lost. But anyway, ended up graduating with fashion merchandising, never used it. And then I started flying with Delta and, you know, adulting, all the things. And then got married, and then my journey as a single mother began. Quite unexpectedly.
You mentioned, look, I got married. And then I was a single mother, you know, and I feel like a lot of times, just like you said, like when you were a kid, you was like, look, like from like the age of 5, I had this idea or this dream of being a doctor. Most women also like empathize or have memories of being young and dreaming about their wedding, dreaming about their dream life. But no woman or girl, you know, dreams when they're young, like, you know, when I grow up, I can't wait to be a single mom. Right. And so I think that alone plays into, you know, when society hears those 2 words, it's usually never met with positivity. But over the last, you know, few years, the last decade almost, you know, I've witnessed it, but I've watched you like through your content, your platforms, your book, you even hosted events, like you foster a positive community and meaning around single motherhood. So tell me like what that journey has been like, or, you know, what even instilled you to start this somewhat of like a movement?
Right. Since like very, very early on, like my mom was a single mom. And so her whole thing was always like education. Like basically that's the way. Like if you get a good education, you have a good job, you have a good life. And that was kind of my expectation. So I'm like, okay, if I follow the plan, I'll have an expected outcome to my life. So I did all the things and I got the grades and I was, you know, the accolades and whatever. But not until later did I realize that became my identity. And so when these things kind of started being stripped away, then I was like really lost. But one thing that I did know is I had seen single motherhood, my mom, my cousins, community, right? And it was just something that I just knew I didn't want for myself. I mean, I guess I didn't think a whole lot about it, but I saw what came with it. So for me, when I ultimately got a divorce and I found myself walking out this new journey of single motherhood, it was really devastating. And I think, honest to goodness, like people talk about divorce and they're like divorce, death and whatever. I didn't feel that way. I honestly felt like this was something that I got into and it almost absolutely ruined me as a person. I'm grateful that I'm walking away from it. So that I can like heal and get back to me. But the worst part and like the part I had to really work through was the fact of like, oh, I'm a single mother now. Like, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my identity? You know? And so it was really hard. And I think the part that kind of sparked it for me. So when I had Milo, so this was back 2017, this is when my fire for mothers ignited. Because at the time I started working in real estate. And so here I am, I'm a new mom. I'm in real estate, like working with investors, and I'm actually at this office. It's like boys club, right? They super fratty, like young white boys.
Yep. At the cooler, talking about, yep.
Yeah, right. So here I am, the first woman that they hire in there. This little black girl coming in there, and I got a baby. So, and it's like first come, first serve. So it's a lot of like macho testosterone. Like I got to go hit the pavement, and I want to do really well. So I'm trying to keep up with that kind of energy. But I got a husband and a newborn at home.
Exactly.
But then also too, I'm in a situation where I'm not necessarily with someone who's like, okay, babe, whatever, go get it. It's like, let me hold you back. So I'm fighting this and feeling that feeling of, well, I could do well in this career or I could be a good wife and mom, but I got to pick. But then at the same time, something else bubbled up like, absolutely not. I don't have to pick. You know, I watched my mom give up everything to be a good mom. And now here I am literally right now watching her be in the space of like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. You know, I have no sense of really self because I've given everything to just being a mom. And now they're gone, right? They're grown up now. Exactly. And I was like, yeah, no. So that's when that fire kind of started for moms. But then after I divorced, and then that was more nuanced. It's like now this new insecurity is bubbling up. Now I'm getting different kind of looks. Now it's different kind of conversations. And I realized that being a single mother comes with a little bit of a different nuance that not everyone will understand. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where my heart came specifically for single mothers, because I know how easy it is to accept whatever because you feel like you don't deserve anything better. Feel like you're damaged goods anyway. So as long as you can get a piece of a man, then, and he a good one, then, you know, it might not be 100% what you want, but stick with it, right? Because he accepts you and your kids. So anyway, that's really where my fire came from for the single moms.
Girl, it's so much. Like, here I am, you know, having this question for you on this podcast about the way I know and have always seen, you know, society view when you hear those two words, single mother. But just in that one answer alone, like, you literally emptied the bottle on how much more it still is, you know, to that, like the career, the job, the outlook, like with your coworkers, you know, like, oh, well, you got a baby and you ain't got no help, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, there's no way she can beat me at this game. Then the fact that because I am a single mom, something happened in that process for me to get here. Right. And then three, just like you said, like you've always seen it and witnessed it, you know, in your own family, but it was just like that's not where I want to be. And I think even throughout all of that, you had those moments of realization of just like, look, like just because this is how something is starting, it's not the way it has to finish. It doesn't have to finish like what I've always seen. Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of times the title per se of a single mom, it becomes this all encompassing thing, you know, just like you said, like, oh, I just got to settle for whatever piece of man I could get because people want me and to take care of a child. And this stigma that, you know, single moms can only afford so much or must accept this, or, you know, they can only do XYZ. Like, I think you have been, I don't know, just like a new definition of, no, I can actually do all the things. I can be a health coach. I can, you know, have my degree. I can take care of my two boys. I can start my own business. I can write a book. So tell us more, like, you know, when you start to find yourself again, right? When you start to redefine who Chatela was and find that identity, like what were some of the things that helped you through that process of, you know, not fully letting go of yourself?
Yeah. Well, so when the process started, I guess, of kind of coming back to myself after I separated and divorced, I was kind of forced into it. Because after my divorce, I found myself in a series of like situationships, right? But once again, I'm like, well, you know, I need black or white, but you know, I'm in this gray area, but it's a good guy. So, you know, just stick it out and see what happens. Right. And so obviously it didn't work.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was frustrating because it's like how do I keep finding myself here? Like I keep saying this is what I want, but this is the outcomes that I'm getting. Like something isn't adding up here. So there was this moment where basically I was in a situationship with someone, right? And come to find out he was dealing with someone else. Now, it was really devastating because it's like, dude, we said we're going to try, right? We're supposed to be trying, me and you, like what happened? But the crazy thing about it is almost to the day, like 5 years previously, almost to the day, right? I had prayed to God because my granny told me, she said, you know, Chatela, when I was dating, I used to pray and I would say, God, help me to not walk in darkness. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay, right? So that day I prayed and I'm like, all right, God, help me to not walk in darkness. Not feeling like I had any reason to pray that, right? I was dating their father at the time. I kid you not, within 2 hours, I get this long message telling me he had been doing all these things, right, behind my back. I had no clue. No clue these things were going on. Now, here I am, almost to the day, 5 years later. And not because I've been in FBI mode and discovered some stuff. God is once again like, girl, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm in this moment and I remember I'm sitting in my daddy's house and like I'm crying and they're just running around oblivious, right? And I'm like, I'm back in the same spot. Like, I've been around this mountain and I'm back in the same spot. Like God tried to warn me then and I kept going anyway. And look where it landed me. I got to do something different this time. And so that was my moment. And I was like, you know what, God, I'm done. I surrender. I'm not going to try to be little G God of any area. Like you can have finances, relationships, career, everything. I surrender fully. Right. And, I was like, you know what, for the next year, no men, no sex, no dating, no boys. It's just me and you, God. Right. And, that was the start of it. And like I said, I had a choice, but I was kind of forced into that choice. But I chose to do different.
Yeah.
And that's what really, really started my journey. And throughout that, it ended up being like a year and a half. But throughout that time, it was like God really like restored my identity. And I became to be okay with being a single mom because I became so secure in who I am and who He created me to be. That now when people say sideways things about single motherhood or whatever, it don't faze me at all. Yeah. Like not in the least bit, but that's only because I learned who I am in God and not let it be dependent upon like external things.
Yeah. Man, oh my God. Just to hear you talk about like being knocked down, you know, in a sense, repetitively, feeling like I've been through this situation before. Like I've gone through this before, like here I am again and again, like, but to use that more so as fuel to be like, well, I got around this mountain one time. This just the next one. I'm going to do it again. But between mountain 1 and 2, you were just like, look, I can't do this shit by myself. Like God, you're going to have to, I'm going to need you to just start guiding on all the things, the finances, the relationships, the conversations, the people I associate myself with. And hearing you kind of like put that trust in God for, you know, just the redefining of your identity, I think is a big thing because I don't know. I really feel like until our generation, like the single motherhood, like identity and stigma, and for somebody like I'm a single mom, like it's never said with pride or with, you know, and that's just because of how society knocks it. When in reality, you know, it's hella people out here that are married that either feel like single parents or just because you're married, it doesn't not make you a single parent. You know what I mean? And so I think it's just interesting to, you know, have this narrative now starting where women are not ashamed to say, you know, I am a single mom. Like, because I tell you, I don't know any single mom, friend, family member that are not just amazing, just phenomenal, just like inspiring to me. to see all the weight that they carry and still do it, with this grace and this abundance, not just for their kids, but for themselves. And I think this kind of community and this narrative that you created of single motherhood does not have to be all encompassing of just about the kids that we've had, but it's also about you. Like, it's also about your identity and, how are you continuing to kind of pour into yourself. So, thinking about your career, thinking about the boys, as a health coach, but all the things that you juggle, still being, a big part for your mom and her journey, and your sister. Like, how do you juggle all of it? How does Chatela find the time for tea?
It's still hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. I used to, like, when I first kind of, like I said, got that fire for moms, and I'm like, no, you can have it all. Through the years, I had to realize, like, okay, yes, you can have it all, but you can't maybe have it all at once. You can't do it all at once. You can do it all, but everything is not going to get 100% of the time. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with, okay, in this season, I have to give a little bit. Okay, so with the boys, I love to be super involved, like, right?
Yeah.
On the floor, playing games, doing the Play-Doh, having Bible studies, putting them in school, right? In mommy school. Love it, right? But in this season where I'm working like 2 jobs full time, I didn't have that time to sit and do that. It's like, no, mommy has to work, right? So I think before I would have taken that as a knock, although I did still feel bad sometimes. Like I want to have more time with them, right? But I also understood, like, this is temporary. And in this season, I got to put a little bit more energy over here. Yeah. But I don't know. It's that continual balancing. And maybe if this area hasn't gotten enough attention, okay, wait, I need to stop, pause, be intentional, and focus in here a little bit more. But it's really just being mindful of all the things and being intentional of where I'm spending my time. I think I can do a whole lot better of getting, like, my time in. A whole lot better. But I know in my time, I'm just like, just let me get a nap. Yeah. If I can get a nap, then I'm great.
Okay, I'm good.
What more can I ask for?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just really that intentionality. And I mean, if I got to put it on the calendar, then it goes on the calendar. I make it very practical.
If it ain't on the calendar, it ain't even happening in my world. Yeah. Like, it ain't even happening. And like what you said about it doesn't have to be all at once, that's a whole word, because I think, social media likes to paint this picture of what self-care looks like. And it looks like a day where you got the pedicure and the massage and the facial and the da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, sometimes, like you said, today I just need a 30-minute nap. Yeah. And I will feel like I have poured into, like, my self-care needs for the week. Like, thinking just a nap today. Or to unpack these suitcases with, with no interruptions, or to clean out the fridge, or to, like, it looks different, and I think that's a big part of, you're able to articulate those things because you've done so much identity work. And I think that's a big part of us figuring out our identity as moms, as wives, girlfriends, all these things, is what are the things that pours into your cup and refills you. It's not going to always be like a pedicure or something for me. Sometimes it is just a nap. Sometimes it is, I just want to clean the fridge without having to stop. I want to, fold all the laundry and watch Netflix. I think when we realize that, self-care doesn't always mean getting out the house necessarily and, like, spending money to do the thing. Sometimes it's just, what do you need most in that moment? And like you said, it doesn't have to be all the things all at once, but where do I need to spend the time intentionally?
Yeah. And I love how you put that, because even with doing the coaching and stuff, as I'm working with, it's mostly women, but as I'm working with people, and really helping people to, like, retrain this idea of, like, what health is, like, it's just like what you put in your mouth. Like, what is the quality of your relationships? What is your sleep? Like, you could be eating kale and salads and blueberry smoothies all day, but if you come home to an abusive relationship, you're healthy. You can't be.
Girl, speak on it.
Go to the gym 15 hours. But then if you have all this brokenness on the inside and you're operating from a place of trauma every day, you're not healthy. So when you talk about self-care, or when you think about self-care, you have to think about, okay, what are all the components that come together to make myself whole, right? So think about your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, all these things. So to your point, going to get a mani and pedi might not be the self-care for today. It might be decluttering, because my mental health can't take it with all this clutter around. Okay, I just need a clean house and I'm gonna feel better. So yeah, self-care is gonna look different. And I think that having those conversations and people really just realizing, like, once again, health is so much more than what I put in my mouth, then we can start defining self-care in other ways than going to the spa.
Oh my God. Yes. I absolutely love that. And see that right there. First of all, that's a whole clip. Like I was like, let me stop and take these notes for this timestamp, because that's a whole clip about health. And this is also why I have now like booked T like to be my health coach, because like she said, it's so much outside of what you eat. Did you work out? Like those are the things we always go to. But just like you said, if I'm a person that hates clutter and 5 days out of this week, I didn't get a chance to clean the office and it's cluttery, I'm probably like building up a whole little bit of anxiety and stress on a whole other part of my brain that I don't even know I'm operating from. Oh, I didn't feel like I presented right in that client meeting. Because your desk dirty. You see what I'm saying? Like all those things like are so connected, and I feel like we don't ever like we never get to see the full picture because you're in it. You know, you're painting it and you're in it.
Yeah.
So no, I can't wait for our sessions to continue because need. So I want to take a break in the interview and ask some questions for our pour session. This is where I take a break in the conversation, and we let the guests get to know a little bit more about you and about me. So popping off with 3 random questions. The first one is, when you're sleeping, are you a fan or no fan person?
No fan. If I sleep with a fan, I'm waking up sick. Like, okay, do not have the fan on.
So look,
just start using the AC.
That was me. Like literally, because I'm a pitch black, no noise, no light. Like it got to be black and it need to be quiet for me to go to sleep. Like even if Antonio like has a show on, like he's the type of person in the bed, he cut the TV on for it to watch him and he gonna go to sleep. But if he cut it on before I went to sleep, I have to stay up and watch it. Like it doesn't even, and it's not even like, Sid, why don't you just cut it off? No, like I have to watch it now because it's like in the middle and it's only like 5 minutes left. So
even if he sleep.
Even last night, he woke up and he was like, why don't you just cut it off? I'm like, well, it's only like 5 minutes left. And it wasn't even my show to be watching. It's his show. It was one of his shows, but it's crazy. So before Bray, and I think it's because I did like, especially with him being a firefighter, the nights when he'd be at the station, when she was a newborn, I have her sleeping with me, before we put her in the crib and stuff. And I'm a fangirl now. Like if the fan is not on, it's like, I'm hot, I can't sleep. And I was never hurt because I was always like that. Like if I sleep on the fan, you know how like when you go to your cousins or something, you sleep on that blow up mattress and you're like, I'm gonna be sick in the morning because I slept on the floor. Like that's how the fan was to me. Now I'm a fangirl. Like gotta have it. If there was one chore of motherhood or adulthood that you could take away, what would it be?
Okay, I'm gonna cheat on this one a little bit because initially I'm thinking the dishes, right? But it's really cooking.
Oh,
if I could have a personal chef to come in, like I'm telling you the type of food, like I want organic and non-GMO, and I'm gonna be super picky and I'm gonna get on your nerves. But I'll even go and buy the food.
Yeah, I'll buy the food. You just cook it.
But you gotta tell me what the meals are. I'm gonna go get the ingredients. You cook it and just put it in front of me. Oh,
yep.
Dreamland, right? I just can't. Just like I gotta cook something different every day,
and like the household. Yep.
Again, you have the audacity to tell me you don't like it,
or don't eat it, or at the phase I'm at now with Bray, the food on the floor. Girl,
I could have just gave you some cereal.
Yep.
And myself and called it a night.
Like the audacity of you to be thinking about their health and the things that they eat when they would just rather eat chicken nuggets 3 times a day.
Don't care. Did y'all care? I cooked a whole meal from scratch. And
Girl.
you're going to tell me that you don't like it or you're full.
Every time I hear this conversation about, cooking and all of that in the process of providing meals, like now you had to have the job to have the money to do the thing, then acquire the food, then cook the food, then hope they eat the food. Like, it's this TikTok that was just like, I just need a pill. I just want a pill that I can swallow with all of my nutrients in it for the day. Like, I'm tired of
I've said that. I was like, if I could just drink smoothies every day or like, and I don't have to eat food, I would sign me up. Sign me up. Sign them up. Really.
Because it's the whole process.
Yeah.
The grocery shopping, all that. So look, I'm with you because my immediate thought goes to laundry. What? Right after we had Bray, like I was trying to come off maternity leave, get back into the business. Tone went back to work after his paternity leave, and the laundry thing, it was just too much. And this was before we had the help of a nanny. And so I was like, laundry is the thing that's stressing me out because I will get it washed and dried and all that. It'd be sitting in the second room, but it'll be weeks before I could get to like folding it. And then if we go somewhere, go back home, travel or something, then it just like enhances the whole situation. And so he actually found, this company that would come pick up your dirties, wash them, dry them, bring them back, fold it. All I had to do was put it up. It was great. It was perfect. And then they went out of business. And so now I'm back to looking at baskets of clean laundry stacked up for weeks. So my brain goes to laundry, but I've also always said if I just had a driver and a chef, like my dream hires one day is a driver and a chef, life would be made because the amount of things I could do, like even though I work from home, I don't be driving. Like the idea of having to drive is like cooking for me. I'd rather just sit in the back seat, do what I need to do, work on stuff, fold shit. I can fold laundry in the car if I had a driver
all day long.
Throw it away. I don't want to drive it. I don't want to cook. Throw it all away.
That with you. I'm gonna figure it out.
Yep.
One of these days.
So, last poor session question: what's the best or worst? You can either pick one, or maybe you got something for both. But what's the best or worst advice you've ever received as a mom?
I remember this lady. She came on the plane one day, and I was working, and I don't know. I probably started talking about kids or something, and she was like, "Well, enjoy it because the days are long, but the years are short." Mm-hmm. And that's always just kind of rang through my head because at the time they're little. They're like both in diapers, like 2, 1 or 2. And, it's hard. You're by yourself. I'm flying. I'm now a single mom. I'm gone 3, 4 days a week, right? I'm everywhere. So it's tough. So it's really easy to get in this like, oh, it's a mundane, like just get it done in the bed and like not really spending time. But it helps me to like slow down. Yeah. And be like, even in the midst of all this, they're not going to be this age forever. It's going to fly by. And even now I look at them and I'm like, how? I almost had a whole breakdown a few months ago because I was thinking about the time like until Milo's 18, right?
Yeah. And it's like
and I'm like, oh, I got like
20 years.
And I'm thinking some huge number, but then I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm almost, he's 7. I'm almost halfway there. And like this, when I tell you, I was for a few days, I was kind of thrown off for a few days because I'm almost halfway there and he's going to be gone. Mm-hmm. Like adults in the world. Like in the whole world. This season of parenthood, gone. Well, I'm like, when did it happen? So that would probably be it. Like, to her point, those days are like rough. It's like if we could just get to the bed. But then you look up and 7 years have flown by.
Yeah. Yep. And too, I mean, like the type of kind of like OCD and type A and planner people like that me and you are, when those moments do hit you like that, like for instance, like Milo 7, like it's just like, dang, well, in the last 7 years, have I done enough to prepare? I don't think I only got 10 more to get him ready. And it's like all the things that you know about the world and people. And it's just like, oh, like, girl, you talking about down for days. I'm there. I get it. I would have been down for a week. And you about to send me on the spiral right now on this podcast. But I've had the same, like I feel like I've heard that from you, or heard you say that. And that is honestly probably one of the best. And I will couple it with, I think it was a guest that we actually had on last season, Charlene, where she said, especially when it comes to motherhood, you have to treat things like an experiment and not a test. Knowing that everything is just a phase. Like, oh, now she's, she wants you to sing Itsy Bitsy Spider and Patty Cake 8 times a day. It's just a phase. Sing the song. Do the thing. Because one day you'll be wishing that, oh, I didn't hear from Braylon today. She off with her friends or, whatever. And it's just like it also helps you when managing, especially these, like precious years right now when they can't really communicate as much and, they're just voicing all of their anger or whatever. And it's just like, have the tantrum. Do whatever you need to do. Yeah. Oh, you want to pick up things and rip them, unless it's something I need, rip it away. Like I can clean it up. Like you just kind of allow them to be a little bit more. I think when you realize that, look, you're going to look up. I read this post one time and it's literally around the same advice where it was like, one day you're going to pick them up and you're going to put them down and you're never going to pick them up again. You're going to wash them in the tub and you'll never wash them again. You'll tie their shoe and then you'll never tie the shoe again. You'll put them in the car and you'll never put them in the car again. And when I tell you that meme had me, I think, bawling in the bed.
Stop already, because you're just like pounding me right now.
I'm like, when that line was just like, you're going to put them down and never pick them up. Then I started thinking about like, when the last time my daddy picked me up? Or when the last time my mom picked my big behind? It's just like, that happened to them.
It does. Like even now, because people be so like, no, make them sleep in their own bed and they're getting if you never. I started thinking about it and I'm like, no, because one day they're gonna like not want to come cuddle with me. They're not going to come crawl up in the bed with me, whatever. So although sometimes I'm like, look, okay, I need my sleep. But like sometimes I'm like, yeah, just come on and crawl up in bed, because how many more times am I going to get?
And you're going to say that, yep.
It's going to change. And I actually remember, I think this one, like Will Smith was talking about one time. This was a really good one too. He was talking about basically like, as parents, a lot of times we think it's our job to like dictate the lives of our children. And, I want you to become this and do this and push them in certain directions or whatever. But really, it's more like a flower in a garden. And we're there to like cultivate and really like help to grow them. Like the seed is already a seed. It already knows what it's going to be, right? Like the gardener doesn't have to dictate to the seed, like you're going to be a sunflower and you're going to be it's just, it cultivates it and it puts it in the right environment to thrive and all these things. So like, that's our jobs as parents. And that one stuck with me. That one has really, so like, from the beginning, it's like, okay, what do I see in you? What giftings are like being highlighted? Okay, well, let's encourage that. Let's go over here. Let's go to a coding class. Or you like to draw? Okay, let me get you some art stuff. Like it's about seeing the giftings that are there and then kind of like helping to like cultivate that. So that was a good one. Yeah. Top of the list too.
That visual is so beautiful. I've never heard that. And it's so true though. And I think about us doing stuff like that, like you said, like the gardener doesn't tell the gardener like you're going to be a sunflower. Like the gifts that God has already given them, what they're going to be it's literally there in their seed from day one.
Yeah.
And so if we're just there to kind of like be around, give it good soil, like make sure you get rain, like make sure you get all the things that a sunflower needs, because the tulip doesn't need the things the sunflower needs, right? Like that's such a beautiful picture. And they literally, throughout us even having this conversation, but I know these are happening, in wider spaces, is I think we're able to now kind of like normalize unlearning, the ways and the experiences we've had with our parents.
Yeah.
Where especially as Blacks and minorities, like we for sure grew up in very much so like, this is the straight and narrow I need you to follow. If you fall out of line, this is how society will view you, look at you, name you, call you. They were growing up in a very straight and narrow way, and then that trickled down into us. And I think they look at us crazy when all these things pop up now about like gentle parenting, and why Bray got like a Keurig that make bottles and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's just like we're unlearning and unnormalizing the ways that y'all were taught. Like it's all a part of the process, and that picture of being there to cultivate them like a gardener with fire, that's gonna stick with me. So thank you for that. All right, so switching gears back into kind of like our last few questions. Let's talk about just Chatela. Let's talk about T growing up. Granted, I've known you through a large part of our like late teens and early 20s, and I think we both have, even since our college dorm days, like have ventured off into paths and jobs and relationships and all type of stuff that we just like, maybe we saw it in some way for each other, but never how it actually morphed to be. So as a young girl growing up in Gainesville, Georgia, which is not the city, y'all, do not let her lie to you.
Not the city.
And I only talk my trash because my roots are also from Gainesville. Like that's where my mom and my granny is from. But who made the most impact on Chatela? Like who influenced you growing up?
It would be my mom and my granny. Like those were the two biggest influences. Like I think from my mom, I saw a lot of strength. And I also saw her sacrifices. And that really drove me I'm talking like 5, 6. Like I saw and I was aware of her sacrifices, and I always wanted her to feel like it was worth it. And so that it was like this internal drive of like doing the right thing. Like don't be a burden by being bad. Right? Like you see she's already got enough on her plate. Like just do what you're supposed to do. Like, doing well in school, it came natural, but like you see how she lights up and she's like, my baby's on my camera. Okay, keep it up, right? So that was a part of it too. But like I said, I saw her sacrifices and I wanted her to feel like it was worth it. And my granny, that was just my girl. Like I think she's the one who she made me believe I could do anything. Like anytime I brought something to her, like I made a dress or whatever, she acted like it was the biggest deal. Like the biggest news that ever hit planet Earth, and just this excitement that she would give. And it really made you feel like, wow, I could do anything. So I would say like those for sure, the two biggest influences.
Even just you talking about her, but when we were talking the other day too, I miss her. Like,
yeah,
her essence, she was one of those people. I think even if you just met her one time,
yeah,
her essence never left you. Like it just never. And she reminded me so much of my granny. Yeah, and both of them being from Gainesville, it's just like y'all are literally the same person.
Yeah,
but yeah, I miss her. Yeah. So what does your ultimate self look like? Like what Chatela has made it, life is just the way that, God has planned for you. Like what does that ultimate self look like?
Yeah, for me, I'm walking in purpose. Like, and I'm really waking up every single day feeling like, oh, this is what I was created for. Like I am doing, and I'm walking in alignment with, what God had already set out for me. And so that's something that's really important for me. And it's, I am in a space of being able to really like invest in my children. Cause for me, a lot of people talk about like generational wealth, and I want to leave all this money and stuff for my kids. And that's great. Like it's great. Right. For me, my biggest contribution that I can ever give them is their spiritual health. Like what is your in God, like if I could leave this earth knowing without a shadow of a doubt, like Jesus, I've done my job. The rest will follow, right? Like that's promise. If you seek me above all these other things, I'm gonna give you what you need, right? So if I can make sure that that's strong, and even now, like stuff will happen, and like they'll start praying, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right, and so that's a part of it, but I'm happy. I feel at peace. I feel safe. I feel content. I feel like I'm giving back. I'm able to be generous with my time and my money, and the revelations that have been given to me. And I don't know. I'm happy. I wake up. I'm happy. I'm not living a life of stress. I'm not this like put everything on my plate and do 11 things just because I got to go get the bag and chase I had this revelation a couple years ago, and everybody's always talking about the chase. I'm going to chase the bag, and I'm going to chase the man, and whatever, right? But I had this revelation, and it's getting in position to receive what God has already predestined, right? So like if I can just be in alignment, then I don't have to worry about like chasing stuff. If I am aligned with where I'm supposed to be, where God has, timing and all these things, and like things will come. There's work involved, absolutely, on my part, but anyway, so I'm just walking in alignment. I'm walking in purpose. I am raising children that are healthy and happy and whole. And I'm healthy. I'm not like real sickness and disease, right? Like I'm vibrant. I'm like 65, 70, 80, like running the marathon or something. I don't know. I'm not running one at 32, but
maybe then you will.
A big 70. I'm gonna save that for later, just to say I did.
Right. I love that.
I think that's what it is.
My favorite part about this question this season has just been these exact responses of it has all been centered around like peace and alignment. Like nobody has answered in a way where it was about like bank account or anything like, or a certain location in life, whether career or like actually on the globe, that they're living. Like it's all been based on like peace and alignment. And there's a couple of things that that you said. One, even early when you talked about kind of stepping back into redefining who Chatela is after divorce and understanding like who your identity is apart from being a mother and a wife and a good daughter and a sister, is that you had the trust in God. You was like, look, everything that I've tried, that I've done myself, this is not working. So I'm going to surrender all the things. I'm going to solely follow your plans for me, and let's see where it goes. And that has turned out to be, such a positive experience. So much so that your boys know, when things are good, bad, up or down, like, let me pray because I see that from mommy. And the beautiful part in that is, we've all had some losses throughout the years, your grandma being one that we were just talking about, but your mom's still here on earth. And even going through single motherhood, even going through the things that she's also experienced, you had to go back to God. So to know that your boys know, like, whether mommy is here or not, I know where I can turn to you. Yeah. Like, that's a power beyond means. And so this is not even a question I have on any type of notes, but, us girl to girl and, just hearing kind of your testimony in that way, as like I was a kid, my family grew up, we was the churchy type, like in church all the time, day in, day out, Monday through Sunday, like Bible study, whatever. And so when I got to, I would say like college, I know we would go to like one of the churches out there in Athens every now and then. We also was in a Bible study group with the NAS for a few years. But that I felt like was when I got to kind of unexhaust myself from always being in the church my entire life, right? And I think you, especially for Black kids that grew up in the church all the time, when you got to those college years, those first years on your own, like that was a moment just like, okay, I don't got to go to church every day, cool. And so I think when I like moved to Dallas, that like, I kind of had that same energy. One, I was in a whole new state, place, no family. I was here for work, and every kind of geographical move I've ever made was about work, was about job, was about career. And so I think when like for a while we would go to TD Jake's church, we would go to Tony Evans when we were living in the city. Then we moved out to the suburbs. That just didn't become like a standing part of our lifestyle. It was just like, oh, well, the churches we love are an hour away. We got, had a baby, started traveling, da 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 da. All of that to say, now we have Bray. Right. Antonio and I both grew up I would say I was probably like super churchy in comparison to him, but I grew up Baptist. He grew up Methodist. We both obviously, aren't religious from the perspective of I gotta be in a church every Sunday. But this is a God filled home. Our, ups, downs, bad days, whatever, that is all gonna always be attributed to him. But how or when did you know, or was there ever a period of pause, I guess, to introduce the boys to church? Like, did you ever feel like they were too young, or it was a certain age? Like, how did you go about that process as a mom of making sure that your boys knew God and, obviously one day begin to have their own relationship to God?
Yeah. It's interesting because I never really thought about it, but I think it just was like second nature. Like I didn't think about it. Like in the early stages, it was just like, I'm going to church, you're going with me. Like they would go with my granny. If I was out of town flying, then they're going to church with her. But then it wasn't just the church. Yes, it wasn't just the church. Like even with her, she would be doing little stuff. Like she's actually the one that introduced them to praying before they ate. Because in my mind, I'm just like, oh, whatever. They're little, they're babies. But then I come home and she's like, say your grace. And they're like, dear God. And I'm like, oh, they're not too little. Like, yeah. So she actually implemented that and instilled that in them. And she would like read the 23rd Psalms with them and little things. But I would say for me, when I started having, so that moment that I was telling you where I was like, God, I'm done, right? I surrender. I think up until that point, I've always been in the church, I guess, had a relationship with God, but it might have been considered maybe more religious, to where it was just like, go to church and that's kind of it. Mm-hmm. I think at that moment, that was a marker where I was like, no, I want to go deeper within my relationship. Mm-hmm. So whether I'm in a church building or not, like I'm having conversations with you and I'm communing with you. So when it came to my kids, I've always had very open conversations with them. Yeah. And I've always just I would encourage them to pray. Like, okay, it's nighttime. Let's say our prayers. And they would just literally be baby talk. And I'd be like, mm-hmm. And I would do that to like, even though they weren't really saying anything, just to encourage them to speak. Yeah. And so that kind of like started, and then I would model. I was very big on like modeling the behavior. And so if something would happen, I would be like, okay, well, y'all, let's come pray about it. Or they'll see me in the house like singing and worshiping and like putting my hands up, so that there's not like a stigma around it. They come normal. And so I would say it's just in the way that I would show up in conversations. And then I would do like little, I don't know, everything would turn into like a little Bible study. Like no matter, what we were talking about, I would always kind of find a way to make a teaching point of it. And it worked. Like there's some things that's like solidified and grounded in them. And, even with the passing of my granny, that opened up a whole new lane of conversations about death and Jesus coming back and making everything better. And like to this day, they'll tell us, like, we just went to a funeral. And they're like, yeah, but when Jesus comes back and, makes everything perfect, like he's going to get a new body. And, like, well, yeah. Like, and so he's going to be born again. And I'm like, well, no, not necessarily like that. Like, but it's like when you just have conversations, like it really anchors in them. So
I love that. I love that. Like showing it through the daily practice versus like what happens on Sunday, because I think too, like you mentioned, your grandma was instrumental in, in those daily practices, whether it was saying the grace and stuff like that. And whereas like with my household, like, she don't got her grandparents. She's not growing up in the ways that we grew up with, family all around, grandparents all around. And so that's even more of a, kind of like an intentional step and effort that Antonio and I have to take, just like regardless of schedule, and it's always going to be regardless of schedule for as long as he's, a firefighter. He's not home all the Sundays. That doesn't mean, we can't go to church, or just through the day to day, like you said, like making sure her food routine begins with grace, making sure her bedtime routine, ends with prayer. Like those little things I think are just like super helpful to know, like for those of us, you know, parents, moms, dads that are just like, like I grew up in the church and I want my kids to, you know church, but I'm not going there every Sunday. I'm not, you know, just it's more through the daily stuff, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you could leave advice at the cooler for a woman that's in your shoes or maybe have even been in your space, what advice would you give them?
Honestly, it would really be to just surrender. Far too often, I think as mothers, as Black women, you know, whatever, we feel like we have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. And there was moments that I had even after kind of surrendering where I'd be like, I just feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulder. But then I would kind of feel convicted because I'm like, well, why? You said you laid it all down. So if you picked it back up, then that's on you. So I would say, like, it's okay to rest and surrender, right? Like, we don't have to have the S on our chests. It's okay to be vulnerable, especially with God. Because it's like he's right there, just waiting for you to be like, all right, I'm ready. And he's like, all right, come on, I've been waiting for you.
Right.
So I would just say that process of surrendering, because then also too, you can bring the brokenness and the pain, and you don't have to continue walking around and operating from a place of trauma and pain and like picking from your brokenness, because that brokenness, it bubbles over to every area of your life. And so I would say that, to surrender and let him to heal that part, because that's really how you're going to learn who you truly are. Because how else can you do that aside from the person who made you? Yep. So that's what I would say.
So beautiful. Like, that's such a beautiful visual, because if you think about all the things that we talked about in this episode, but that, you know, even if you're just listening, like that, you know, about the single motherhood, those two words together, like so much of that journey, you know, if you ever make it out to not be ashamed, so much of that journey is sometimes casting away and hiding the things that you should honestly be proud of. Yes, I'm a single mom and I do it well. Yes, you know, I've been through divorce or separation of some kind, and that's how I landed on this journey. Like all those things that when you know, say you're in a dating app or you meeting somebody for the first time or you networking for a job, all those things that you try to, like, I'll bring that up in the third meeting or I'll bring that up on the fourth date. Like what you just said, you can bring those on the first date with God. Like you don't need to wait to bring the trauma and the pain and the, like, it's just a perfect mirror of how society would have you walk it and how God would have you walk it, right? Like, and the fact that, you know, knowing you as, you know, my friend and sister and, you know, our family, something like seeing you like literally progress. You could have been the president of the United States. You could be driving a Bentley. You could be, I don't know, have a house off the coast of Hawaii somewhere. But this will always be like my most, I would say, cherished and treasured moment of witnessing for you and around you and supporting you, is seeing you overcome something that society always wants to be like, they ain't worth nothing, or, you know, just kind of like kicking them to the side. And that was never your story. You know what I'm saying? That was never the finish line that you decided to write for yourself. And it's just beautiful. And I'm just so proud of you. And I'm constantly like, I feel like around the house every night, I'm just like, let me see what T doing. You know, I'm just like, I'm so proud of her. Like Antonio or Christine, I'm just so proud of her. Yeah, it's just a beautiful journey. And I thank you for, you know, always kind of like shining your light in that way too. So like other moms and women can just see, you know, I think that's a big part of us establishing these platforms, is not showing like the limelight and like, oh, I got it all together and da da da. Like, no, like you have literally like unapologetically and unabashedly always just showed the journey. Like, got laid off from a job, or the boys are starting school and I'm a nervous wreck, or you know, it's been good to feel that from you. So So last piece of today, definitely drop your socials, and then if you have any like exciting services or events, another book, I don't know, like anything coming up.
That was a lot of words.
If you got anything coming up, where can the people find you, and what else you got going on?
Yeah, okay, so Instagram at Chatela Monet, that's like the most active. I started the other channel at livingredefined.co because I felt like I had to separate like the health coaching stuff and the single mom stuff, but I think I'm at this place now where I'm learning that I can merge the two. So I don't know what that means for the other page. So just at Chatela Monet right now. And yeah, that's probably the biggest one. I do have YouTube, so same thing as Chatela Monet. That's more single mom focused. So if that resonates with you, then it's a lot of good stuff on there. But yeah, I would say as far as upcoming stuff, so I'm stepping more out on my own as a health coach. I've been working with a doctor, and so a lot of my coaching has been like behind the scenes and just kind of like in her practice. But there are some things that I want to do differently, and moms want to focus on, and more faith-based and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like, starting to offer that. So I don't know, I guess the best way as of right now, well, no, by the time this comes out,
Yeah.
how about you just head to the link in my bio and just schedule your call with me, okay? I got you. Yeah, I would say that those are the things.
I love that. Well, T, thank you so much for hopping on and sharing your story. Everybody who's tuned in, thank y'all for listening, and I'll see y'all on the next episode.